So I think at the peak of the tech, I won't say bubble, but the frenzy on tech companies, your company was valued, I thought, around $95 billion or something like that. So $95 billion for a startup is pretty impressive. But then the meltdown in the tech world occurred. I think your last valuation was probably something closer to $60 billion. So is that depressing when you're from 95 to 60? 60 is still very high. And were people upset, or do you say this is just the tech world and it'll go back up?
Yeah, look, people have a funny relationship to prices where, first off, in the entirety of the public market space, you had a lot of enthusiasm in 2021, especially for things like, SaaS and fintech and things like that. If you look at companies in a similar space to Stripe, but that are public, be it Shopify or Square or anyone like that, they also had kind of much higher valuations in 2021, and those came down because interest rates changed, the environment changed, and so of course that should flow through to valuations. But we find in the private market world, people get very funny about it, and I see other companies trying to preserve a valuation that doesn't make sense anymore. Like, prices are based on, you're at the midpoint of supply and demand, and they're kind of the imputed value of all the future cash flows. But I don't think it serves anyone to be in denial about what a price is.
You were the co-founder and president. Who was the other co-founder and CEO?
So our CEO and my co-founder is my brother, Patrick. So we've been working together for a long time. We started the business 14 years ago, and we actually started a business together previously that was part of how we got the idea for Stripe.
You've heard the phrase sibling rivalry. So do you have a sibling rivalry with your brother? Is he your older brother?
He's my older brother. No, it's not. It mightn't work that well if we were particularly rivalrous. I actually think it's quite valuable for us. Look, everyone's co-founders' relationships are different. You have co-founders at Carlyle. In our case, in Silicon Valley broadly, co-founder relationships can be unstable inherently. You look at all of the large companies, Apple, Microsoft, Google, pick your example, and Facebook. In a lot of cases, the original co-founding team did not stick together. And again, in Stripe's case, we get really excited about this idea of growing the GDP of the internet, expanding the internet economy, and 14 years in, we actually, we now are at the table stakes part. We feel like we've done some good groundwork, but we can do some really interesting stuff over, the next 10 or 20 years. I think that's much more fun, and you have much more opportunity to work on it with a long-term perspective if you have very trusting co-founder relationships. It makes it, I think, more stable, more enjoyable, so you're more likely to stick at doing it. And so I feel pretty fortunate for the relationship that Patrick and I.
Let's talk about your background and how this came about. So I can tell from your accent you're not from New York City.
Exactly, yeah.
So originally you're from where?
I'm from Ireland, and I grew up there, and then I ended up coming to the United States for college.
You grow up in Ireland, Limerick. I assume you did okay in school, but you got into Harvard, which is probably not that easy to do from Ireland. So why did you go to Harvard, and why did you drop out of Harvard?
I went to Harvard. I don't know, at that time I just had some wanderlust. I wanted to get out and explore the world. As you say, I was pretty academic. I liked school, I liked studying, and I just really wanted to get out to somewhere else. And I think that's sometimes for people who grew up somewhere kind of small, in a small community, that's a common sentiment. So that's how I ended up at Harvard. We actually started Stripe when we were in college. So I was at Harvard, Patrick was down the road at MIT. We had been talking about this idea. And again, this was 2009, where there were a huge number of internet businesses. But if you talk to any internet entrepreneur, again, they would tell you that this was their biggest frustration. But we were 19 and 21 at the time. We were not experienced in the industry. And I think what's interesting is Stripe is obviously a regulated financial services firm. It was probably helpful that we had no idea of what it would entail, because it's actually pretty complex to build something like Stripe, but we gradually got into it.
Right. So you did 1 year at Harvard and you dropped out.
Yeah.
And did you say to your parents, I'm going to be the next Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, or they didn't say anything about the importance of going and getting your degree?
Quite the opposite of what I said to my mom when I was leaving Ireland for college is, she said, okay, because Patrick had dropped out previously, she said to me, if you're going for 4 years, you got to do the whole thing. I said, yes, absolutely. I'm going 4 years. I will graduate. And that was about 2 months before we started writing the code for Stripe.
So where did you get your initial money to get the company started?
So we did like a lot of people. We did, a little bit of kind of friends and family fundraising from anyone we could get connected to. And then the very first investors were Paul Graham, Sam Altman, and then Peter Thiel.
Okay, so they came in early.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you had no revenue. You had nothing but an idea.
We had a few customers, and so I guess we had a little bit of revenue, but minimal. It wouldn't be impressive to you.
All right, so you get the company off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and at what point do you get enough customers to go to a professional venture capital firm and say, we have a real business here?
I think with the early stage investors, they're very much focused on the founding team, the product, things like that. And so when you look at those early investors to Stripe, I think basically what they looked at is they saw the product. We might have had 50 customers at the time or something. We had a quite compelling demo showing how quickly you could get started accepting payments. And this is still like, if I want to sell someone on Stripe today, I just show them, you go to stripe.com, you log on, and you can be set up to start accepting payments from customers all around the world in a matter of 5 minutes. That's kind of the demo now, and it was the demo back then. And then we would encourage investors to talk to any kind of tech entrepreneurs they know and just ask them how the experience of dealing with payments was. And so, we'd talk to an investor, we'd show them the product, whatever. And then they would maybe go call one of their portfolio companies and, say, hey, do you guys have any problems accepting payments? They'd have to hold the phone away from their ear. They got so much yelling at the other end about how crummy the existing providers were. But I think that's really what they were underwriting in the early investments was just, this seems like a good idea. This product seems good. And it seems like it's addressing a real problem that people have. Being in a domain teaches you about that domain if you're willing to pay attention. And a lot of business success can come from listening to what the market is trying to tell you.
Now, you're pretty well known in the tech world. So if you walk down the streets in New York City where we are today, I don't know whether people would recognize you. But if you go into a restaurant in Silicon Valley, I assume everybody comes up and says, here's my resume or something like that. Can you go in Silicon Valley and not be bothered by people trying to get something from you?
Yeah, it's still fine actually, because remember, we sell to businesses. We're not on TV all the time, and people just, I think, aren't that interested in the payments industry, which we like. It's nice to be in a boring part of the industry.
How old are you now?
I'm 33.
33. Okay, well, pretty young. So let's suppose when you're 43, 53, or 63, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a wealthy entrepreneur, build another company, be a great philanthropist, art collector? What is your ambition 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Well, first off, I'd be very happy running Stripe. I expect to be running Stripe 20 years from now, because again, this is just the kind of problem that has returns to time spent on the problem. And the payments industry is actually changing quite a bit at this very moment in time, where we're seeing, for example, more global heterogeneity in payment systems. Like, 15 years ago, everyone maybe just paid online with a credit card, whereas now every different country has a different, you've seen the growth of UPI in India or Alipay and WeChat in China and things like this. And so you need something like Stripe to knit all these together. And we're just very early in the digitization of commerce broadly. And so again, this is to me a very fulfilling, satisfying problem that I'd very happily be working on in 20 years. However, we're also kind of getting more interested in philanthropy, and I think trying to learn about that and do it in a more bottoms-up way. And so we have a biomedical institute that we helped start, ARC. And there's various other kind of projects that we back.
So has Bill Gates been after you to sign the Giving Pledge?
I have not talked to him about it. Yeah.
Really, I'm sure after this interview, he'll be calling you.
We're doing a bunch of giving, so we're already on the program.
So sometimes people that are entrepreneurs say, I have one great idea, but actually I'm really smart. I can have two great ideas. So I have one great idea. Now I'm going to start another company because I'm also so smart. I can think of another great thing. So is that a burning ambition to start another company, or this one is basically, this is going to be your life's passion?
It's hard enough to have one good idea. And, Charlie Munger had the, great quote about, taking a simple idea and taking it really seriously. I think maybe people don't take the core idea seriously enough, where the idea behind Stripe is we think that there could be more internet commerce, more successful internet companies created if we lowered the cost of doing so if we made it easier to do so. And we're taking that core idea really, really seriously.
So if somebody is watching this and they want to take away from this interview something about Stripe, and you could summarize in a paragraph or two what you would want somebody to know about Stripe, what would it be? How would you summarize what somebody should know, what you'd like somebody to know about Stripe?
One could be this idea of, taking an idea and taking it seriously. And again, we started with, we want to make it easy for internet businesses to accept money, and we just kind of kept running with that. The other thing maybe is that I think Silicon Valley entrepreneurs tend to try to, in retrospect, go back and tidy up the story and make it seem like they had everything figured out on day one. Our mission, we set out to, go solve, X, Y, Z. I think the way it tends to actually happen is that there's a bit of experimenting. You don't know where it's going to go, but the domain teaches you as you go if you're paying attention. And so with Stripe, we never thought that there'd be as much of an opportunity to be a global payments infrastructure as we did, but we could have learned from our customers. Similarly, we never thought large businesses would use Stripe, like some of the companies I mentioned, like Amazon and Hertz and those folks using us. On day one of the business, we never thought that would happen, but we noticed that larger and larger businesses were reaching out to us and needed the services, or the business on Stripe were growing. We also had companies like DoorDash and Instacart who started as very small companies and obviously are now very successful public companies. And so I think the thing that maybe people underrate is being in a domain teaches you about that domain if you're willing to pay attention. And a lot of business success can come from listening to what the market is trying to tell you.